Hi folks, it's 6:20 in the evening on the 16th of April, and this is my astrological take on the second house. The second house relates to the second sign of Taurus, and it is the physical manifestation into the outside world of typical Taurian issues such as value and worth. The second house relates to issues around property, possessions, resources, the way you attract resources, your attitudes towards finances, money, and more important than any of these things, what it is that you find to be of value and worth in the outside world. Some people value others for what they look like, or what car they drive, or how much money they've got. Other people value others for words like dignity, integrity, conscience. All of these are independent value systems governed by the nature of the second house in your horoscope. If you've got a lot of planets in the second house, you're going to find yourself concerned around resources and values, and there can be a need to avoid too much clutter. If you've got nothing in the second house, then you're more likely to be someone who has little attachment to value or resources, preferring instead to get by with needs as opposed to wants. If you have the sun in the second house, then you're a person who, over the course of your life, you will sense how your value systems will change. And you will leave this world with little, but you will have a great time spending what you've got. Whereas with the moon in the second house, it's actually a really good place for the moon to be, because it brings, as one gets older, a refinement and a sophistication into one's appreciation of value and worth. It makes one appreciate other people, for example, much more for the quality of their company rather than the quantity. Mercury in the second house can get enmeshed into material concerns. It can be overly immensely concerned around getting one's own way, and that needs to be avoided to a degree. Over possessiveness or over concern around resources can be a problem with Mercury in the second. Venus loves it in the second. Venus is really comfortable there. It doesn't matter how much money it is or what the food is like, as long as it's done with a bit of style. Venus in the second house is very stylish. Mars in the second house, again, can get overly concerned of what is mine and what is thine. And there can be problems around sharing around resources and values with Mars in the second house. It's not the easiest place in the sky to have this feisty, individual, fiery planet. Jupiter in the second house, one might think would be a good position in that it does bring the opportunity over the course of one's life to attract quite a degree of resource. But at the end of the day, yeah, it also gives the capacity to spend a lot of it as well. And the idea of finding moderation in value and worth is something that Jupiter in the second house will struggle with until they've been to the extremes of both poverty and riches, metaphorically speaking. Saturn in the second house is a stinker. It tells you that really you're going to have to struggle in the first half of life until at the end of the day, by the time you're approaching 40, you suddenly realise, actually, I don't need all this anyway. Why am I fighting for it? At which point it all comes. And you end up with all your needs being met without really trying too hard. I know, I've got Saturn there. Uranus in the second house brings an unconventional attitude towards both the managing of money and the making of it. And at times this can be a real spendthrift, and at times also a real miser. And it can lead to unconventional attitudes around the spending of money and the acquiring of it. Different, not better or worse, but different. Neptune in the second house is not so much about money as in where do I get it. It's more like, well, what does it really stand for? What's its real value? And often the more you try and grab money, the more it slips between your fingers like sand on water. And real value is more of spiritual, less material and more spiritual as one gets older. And with Pluto in the second house, there is the desire to reform and change one's attitudes around the more baser material possessions of life. You become less and less possessive and more understanding of the real depth that true value brings. The second house where you find value and worth, not only in other, but also in oneself. Catch you later. Bye.